The May 9th, 2022 Anacortes City Council meeting. Ms. Hunt, would you take the roll, please?
Mr. Carter?
Present.
Mr. Young?
Present.
Mr. Walters? Ms. Cleland McGrath?
Here.
Ms. Moulton?
Here.
Mr. McDougall?
Here.
Ms. Hubick?
Here.
Thank you.
Would you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay, just a couple things from, we're on to announcements and committee reports. A couple things from me. A quick COVID update. There has been an increase of COVID-19 cases reported in Skagit County. The state has indicated that BA.2 is the dominant strain in Washington State, highly contagious subvariant of Omicron. Preliminary data suggests that BA.2 may cause more mild disease, although some people may still have some severe reaction. Most susceptible to becoming critically ill with the COVID-19 continue to be individuals 60 years of age or older, certain immunocompromised individuals, and individuals who are unvaccinated. Island Health, although numbers have gone up in Skagit County for hospitalizations, Island Hospital currently has 0 COVID patients. Also, we had a couple of water main breaks Thursday and Friday, unrelated, but again, thanks to our water crew, our police and fire department who responded. One was in the area of Skyline and Cabana Way, and the other was near the senior center on Friday. Crews were out there pretty quickly and resolve the issue. I will say we do spend over almost $1.5 million a year replacing our older water lines. Again, one was related to a pressure reduction valve failure, but again, we continue to improve our system as we can. And the third item, I need to remove item 6A, the public hearing for the CDBG action plan. And I need to do that because we have not received the final allocations from HUD, and in order to have the public hearing, we have to have the exact numbers rather than estimates before we have that public hearing. So we will remove that from the agenda. So we're on to a big night here on item 3A, confirmation of Henry Hash as Public Works Director. And this is an action item, and I'm going to do a quick little brief about Mr. Hash. So tonight, I will ask for Council's confirmation of my appointment of Henry Hash as the City of Anacortes Public Works Director. Mr. Hash has accepted our contingent offer of employment and is scheduled to start work as Director on July 18th, 2022. Mr. Hash has over 30 years of experience in municipal and county public works and utility director roles. Mr. Hash has a BS in civil engineering and 2 master's degrees, one in public administration, one in management. He has also held PE licenses in several states. Most recently, Mr. Hash has held successful interim roles in Arizona and was the Public Works Director for the City of Tukwila. Mr. Hash will be responsible for directing the operations of each division of the Public Works in support of our city goals. I've attached Mr. Hash's redacted resume, including further detail on his background and experience for your review. So at this time, I would entertain a motion from council to confirm Mr. Hash as our next Public Works Director.
Mayor Miller.
Ms. Moulton.
Thank you. I just would like to say, as part of the about 8 or 9 person interview committee that included all of the division managers of Public Works, it was really exciting that every single one of us unanimously agreed immediately that Mr. Hash should be our next Public Works Director. So with that, I move that we approve his appointment as the new Public Works Director for the City of Anacortes.
Mayor Miller,
Mr. Young.
I second that.
Okay, I've got a motion by Ms. Moulton and a second by Mr. Young to confirm Henry Hash as our Public Works Director. I think I can do a voice vote on this one. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much. And Mr. Hash, if you want to say a couple words quickly to council, I'm sure they might appreciate that, so we can all see who you are. And the blue button at the bottom of the microphone when it turns blue. There we go.
Good evening, the Honorable Mayor and Council. It's really my pleasure and honor to be here before you. It is a good feeling to be back in Skagit County and Anacortes. I served as a Public Works Director for Skagit County for several years and lived in Mount Vernon. I also had an office for our ferry operation, which I just visited this afternoon here in Anacortes. So it's like coming back home. I have many, many friends here, and can't say how excited we are, my wife and I, to come back here and to be able to serve you and the community to the best that I can. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Well, thank you. I don't think we'll have council put you on the spot just yet for hard questions. Those will come in July, as usual.
I appreciate that, Mayor.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Hash, and welcome aboard.
Thank you very much.
All right, we're moving on to other business, council and committee reports. Public Safety Committee, item 3B. Ms. Cleland.
Sure. We had a public safety meeting on May 3rd. Pretty quick meeting, efficient. Mr. Kennedy was filling in for Chief Harris. You know, we've got about 4 new employees for the fire department. 2 are finishing up orientation. 1 is starting the academy, and 1 should be a lateral move later in May. And they're still looking for an assistant chief. Station 3, the preliminary work out by March Point, it appears that the critical areas study is okay, and they are working on kind of their dream plan for the next 10 to 30 years, getting that list together for all the stakeholders to give to the developer. Mr. Fuller was there in lieu of Chief Floyd for the police department. Again, kind of the main focus is staffing. 1 subject's in the academy, expected to graduate in June. We've had a couple other that have had some hiccups, but everything's going fairly good. And then finally, we touched a little bit on the T Avenue issue. It's ebbing and flowing. They're keeping a constant monitoring it and making sure that if there is any kind of unsafe materials coming out of vehicles in that area, they are being dealt with promptly and effectively by the police department. So that's about all we had. It was a quick one.
Okay, thank you. Over to item 3C, Port City Liaison Committee.
Mayor Miller.
Ms. Hubick.
Thank you. Port City also met on May 3rd, immediately before public safety. Also very efficient meeting where we went over a recap of the joint meeting that was held here in the council chambers, so kind of rehashing what we want to see move forward as part of the Maritime Strategic Plan. How often should meetings be had? How many people should be invited? So there's more conversation that needs to go into that. We also reviewed the upcoming summer events. So the Anacortes Boat and Yacht Show with Trawler Fest is coming up May 19th through 21st. And then we've got Waterfront Festival and Race Week and 4th of July and Summer Concert Series and Shipwreck Days and Arts Festivals. So it's always been a good reminder just how active and involved our community is during the summer months. They also gave us an update on the RV park that will probably be closing down in the end of June to start the work and the renovations of that space. But it really does depend on when the RCO grant money comes in, and so when the actual products that they've ordered come in. But they'll continue to give us updates about that. Next meeting that we're having in June is going to be hosted by the city here, and we are also working on trying to set quarterly intentions to come back to council and have conversations related to the Maritime Strategic Plan.
All right, thank you for that report, and exciting that we're going to have events starting next week, so we've got some things happening. 3D, Housing Affordability and Community Services Committee, and Ms. Cleland.
Thank you. Yeah, so we met May 5th online, and we actually had a consultant from Makers come and talk to us and have an update about the Housing Strategic Plan. They've met with a number of stakeholders in our community. About the 13 of the interviews out of 18 stakeholders for this kind of initial round have been interviewed to date, and we also kind of gave them some other stakeholders that we thought might be beneficial to talk to. Really, they wanted to talk to kind of nonprofit organizations, housing authority, Anacortes Family Center, developers, stakeholders that kind of understand on the ground currently what's happening in Anacortes. They got some general themes out of it. You know, obviously it's difficult for low to moderate income renters to find housing. There's some competition with retirees and high income households moving here. Limited capacity for folks who need supportive housing, mental health things, or transportation. And then looking for partnership opportunities to make affordable housing pencil and develop. So the next thing we discussed, that was a nice update, but we also discussed the survey that will go out to the general public, and we hope that as many folks in our community, either if they live here, can fill it out, if they work here but don't live here currently, why that is, if they live here and they work other places, also why that is. Makers gave us kind of a good start, but it was a bit generic of the questions that were asked. So Ms. Moulton and I gave them a lot of food for thought, because we want to make sure that people feel like the questions being asked prompts real kind of information versus kind of a generic response. So I think Makers did really hurt us, and I think we were able to hash out kind of what was missing and what we would like to see more focus on. So it was a good meeting, and we look forward to getting that out, and please fill it out, because we want to hear not only your case, but if you've got friends and family, neighbors, and what they're going through too.
All right, thank you. On to 3E, Planning Committee. Ms. Moulton, I believe.
Thank you. The Planning Committee met just prior to this meeting, and we talked about one topic tonight, and that is our Shoreline Master Program periodic update. So Ms. Grage gave an overview and a preview of a presentation that will come to council next week, May 16th. And that will be also shared with the watershed company, the consultant who is working on this update. So this is a necessary periodic update. It's been through Planning Commission, and Planning Commission recommends approval. We'll get background of the whole process, an overview of that. There have been 2 public comment periods already, and there are some changes that are obviously going to happen. That's why it's called an update. So there are some new state laws, and our regulations need to be updated to match those, and also to have consistency with some of our other plans and regulations, like the critical areas ordinance, the newly adopted, that we recently adopted, will be incorporated by reference, concurrence with the comp plan, things like that. So the attempt for everything to be more orderly and easier for people to find the information they need and to also understand it. So I look forward to the presentation next week, and at that time we will be asked to consider the changes and see where we want to go from there. So it's great. This has been going on for a little while, was delayed from COVID, and so kudos to staff for bringing it forward, and we're getting there. We should have it adopted by the end of June, beginning of July. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other announcements or committee reports? Okay. On to item 4. This is the time on our agenda for public comment. Any members of the public like to address the council? Now is a good time to do so. Unless you're going to talk to us about fiber later on. If you want to add your comments there, but anything not on the agenda? Got 2 participants online, a few people here. All right, going once. All right. All right, moving on to item 5, our consent agenda, items A through D. City Council.
Mayor Miller,
Mr. Carter.
I move we approve consent agenda Alpha through Delta.
Second.
Okay, a motion by Mr. Carter, a second by Mr. Young to approve consent agenda items A through D. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, we've removed item 6A, so we're on to other business. 7A, Access Anacortes Fiber Internet Update. Ms. Shu, you are up. And I almost gave you enough time to load your screen.
So nice to be here in front of you and not sitting at my desk. Good evening, Mayor, Council, and members of the audience. Pleased to provide an update on Access Anacortes Fiber Internet. And sorry, trying to end this call. As it was mentioned last week during the Fiber Committee update, we are going to be transitioning to quarterly updates as opposed to doing these on a monthly basis. But I do want to avail myself and Mr. Lundberg, if you have any questions about fiber, we're always happy to answer them. I apologize in advance. I'm going through this as a PowerPoint presentation instead of, as a PDF as opposed to a PowerPoint presentation. I had a little bit of a glitch in my system. So I wanted to provide you with information. This is just a year over year from May of 21 when we had 720 customers in service to today when we have 1,294 customers. Our revenue has increased significantly during that time, and we are very close to transitioning to having $1 million in revenue based on our monthly revenue that's coming in. So nice growth in the fiber department. Our customer orders are continuing to come in almost as fast as the rate in which we can put them into service. That is a great problem for my department. So we have about 30 weeks of installs constantly in queue in the West End. So what that means is that anybody who has placed an order, if you get a call from Kimberly Henry, go ahead and take that call and get scheduled, because really it could be up to 6 months from now that we'll be able to build you into the schedule. As you can see, we are outpacing what our expectations and hopes were from a business plan perspective, where we were looking for a 35% market share. In the West End, we are already at 39.1%. So we currently have 301 customers in service, but a total of 901 who have placed orders in the area. That is running very consistent to the other areas that we have in service, where you look at the pilot area, where we have 45.1% take rate. So we have 953 customers in service there, but just over 1,000 orders. So we're still getting orders in that area as well. So I appreciate, that the orders continue to come in. People are talking with their neighbors and saying this is really a service that works for us. And what that translates to is $82,700 in monthly revenue, just purely from the monthly cost associated with that service. These are the fiber division cash flows, and it looks just at January through March because we do have a delay in our revenues posting. So it doesn't make much sense for me to show you the April expenses without taking into consideration also the April revenue. But you can see that we're getting very close to being operationally cash flow positive, and that is also consistent with our business plan. So this is just a breakdown of our network expansion. I know that you've seen this chart before. The areas in green are the areas where we currently are in service. So these are our pilot areas. And then you can see in the west end, and I do have another map that shows a little bit more detail, but what I love to see are these, the additional green that's coming in the west end, because those are areas that we're lighting up and putting into service. So, and then the Guaymas View, which will be our expansion area in this year, and then we're continuing every day to work on the EDA expansion area as well. So here's a little bit closer picture of the West End expansion, but you can also go in and just go to the city's website if you had a specific question about a specific address, and it would be able to tell you the time frame in which we will be able to add service there if it's not already provided. So as I mentioned, the installations are currently underway, and we're have quite a backlog in terms of getting people into service. And RBC is in the process of really finalizing the work in that area. We expect by late May, early June, that they'll be wrapping up with that work. What will mean is that we'll go in and city staff are doing the splicing work, which turns that service live. But eventually this area, before too long, will all be turning green as being a current service area. As we look towards the network expansion, as you know, the West End passes about 2,375 homes. The funding source for that is through our line of credit and also some funding through the American Recovery Plan Act. The areas that we're working on next, and I'm sorry I'm kind of skipping down here, is the Guaymas View area. I wanted to let you know that that area is east of Anacortes Mine Road to A Avenue. So there's about 875 premises that will be passing there. And that project is moving along. The design is complete, the materials are ordered. We have the intent to bid response is due to the city for the civil work on May 19th. And then the construction and installation will happen later this year. That project is to be funded primarily through debt, and we're still working internally about what that exact debt source will be. And I also wanted to let you know that we are moving forward with an application through Skagit County for the .09 public facility project grant. And so we put in a $500,000 application for that. We're asked to present to the committee last week. And so they expect that they'll be making decisions in early June. The good news about that is that they had 10 applications. They had about $4.3 million in requests, and they have about $3.5 million to be able to distribute. So fingers crossed that we'll be successful with that. We also have the EDA area. As you're aware, we have about a $2.25 million grant through the Economic Development Administration, and we're moving forward through all the processes required for federal grants and the processing that goes with that. The balance of that will be funded through debt, and we're also looking at any other federal infrastructure loan options that may be available. In terms of where we are with that project, that design work is done, and we're beginning to prepare the materials for the construction and materials. That will be one bid that we'll put out. It's a little bit different than any of the projects that we've done, and that's a federal requirement. And we're continuing to work on the easements that are necessary for that project. This is just a summary of some of our continuing activity. As I mentioned, May 19th will be opening the bid opening for the underground construction project for Guaymas View. The EDA expansion, it really is taking so much partnership, and I'm so appreciative of the support that we have through the legal department, the public works department, the finance department, both in preparing plats and the easement documentation, and also doing that preparation for the invitation to bid. Citywide, we're continuing to work with the legal department on all the easements that are necessary, both with the property owners and the homeowners associations, and appreciate that the HOA groups and the residents are being really good about being communicative with us so that we can answer any questions that they may have. We're meeting regularly with the finance department to talk about our financial planning and how we will continue to fund the remainder of the project. And as I mentioned, that we presented last week on the $500,000 grant application that we have. So coming soon, we are updating our sanitation truck advertisement. This is a live QR code. So you can, if you go, oh, I've been wanting to do that, you'll be able to just take a picture. I think we've all learned through COVID how to be more nimble with QR codes. But there's also will be a phone number, and these go on the side of the sanitation truck. So we do appreciate that they allow us to use their fleet for advertising. So. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you.
Miller?
Mr. Young?
Yeah, I was, first of all, always a great presentation, and I'm thankful for all of the hard work by everyone in the city to provide such a service to our area, because it really, does make our city unique in the sense that the strength of having a good service to provide not only for the people of the area, but also for businesses, and it sort of strategically puts us in place. While you were doing that, Jeremy, my fellow councilperson, took a picture off of this, and it instantly came up on his phone, so I applaud that as well. One question, though, that I do have that may not, I'm just curious about is, even though we have a backlog, which is a great thing, what are some of the challenges to speeding that up that you're confronting, such as COVID, supply chain management? I always kind of want to make sure that that comes forward to the public each time we do that, but to also show the successes of what we're doing and making forward. And the last question I have is relative to the numbers of people that are continually seeking to get our service. Is there any way we know how many people out there that have internet service already? Sometimes that's is indicative of how many people already have services that may be willing to come over to us.
So
that was two questions, really.
Yes, and several questions.
Yeah.
So we are averaging about 20 installs a week. And that is working well with our staffing that we have in place now. There's many steps, and we have to call in locates in advance. We need to make sure that we have all the order forms and the right of entries in place before we get people to be able to get to the place of installation. So right now, that target of about 20 installs a week is working for us. Yes, we probably could increase the rate of installations if there was a desire to bring in additional staffing. We're looking for kind of continuity, and that we want to make sure that our orders are there so we can also keep the staff busy until the Guaymas View area is ready to begin being installed, and then it will go to the EDA area. So it's a very natural progression with that installation rate.
Thank you.
So we are making the assumption, to your second question, we are making the assumption that every single person that is coming into the service is coming from another provider. So we're making the assumption that there are very few people at this point that do not have internet service. And so we look at every premise that we pass as a potential customer.
Got it. So you're basically saying that the assumption is, well, first of all, they're coming from someplace more than likely. But you're also making the assumption that the houses that you're passing, all of them, at least most houses, have some type of internet service, and they can potentially be customers for us.
Yes, and that is supported also by some research that I was looking at specific to Skagit County about broadband access in Skagit County.
Mayor Miller?
Mr. McDougall?
Really quickly, congratulations. It's terrific to see that citywide take rate number of 38%, and to see the 45% in the existing service areas, and that the West End has climbed up to nearly 40%. EDA also at 40%. We haven't even broken ground. If I recall correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, Guimas View is about 24%, but we haven't broken ground. I think the West End was like 20 to 25% before we broke ground as well. And since breaking ground, we've seen it shoot up to close to 40, right?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. McDougall. Yes, the place that we're at right now with the Guaymas View is that we currently have 24.3% take rate, and that's very consistent as we're letting people know that this is the area that we're going to be expanding into. When the construction begins in that area, we'll see another surge, and then we will do targeted marketing in that area as well.
Fantastic.
So I do think that it's very consistent for where we are in the project at this point.
And then when we do get into the EDA area, that's largely overhead utilities, so that'll be easier, or generally quicker installations. I don't recall how many per week we were doing, with 2 crews on the existing areas, but does that number maybe increase to 25, 28 per week?
Yes, and then we do have a kind of a mixed area with the EDA,
true, yeah.
that there is quite a bit of underground there as well. But yes, you are accurate that the installations that we can do from an aerial perspective are less time intensive than ones where we need to do any kind of trenching or underground work to get to the premise.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Shu? And this is open for public comment. Okay, thank you, Ms. Shu. Appreciate the report. Well, there isn't another item on the agenda. There is a little announcement that I feel like I need to make, as much as maybe Ms. Hunt does not want me to make this announcement, but it's bittersweet for us, I think, certainly for me. This is Ms. Hunt's last council meeting with us here in Anacortes. So it's bittersweet because I know I couldn't have done my job 8 years on council without Ms. Hunt helping me through it, and certainly now. So you'll be sorely missed, but fair winds and following seas. And I know there's a couple other council members that wanted to say some things, but we do have some parting gifts on behalf of the myself and the council and the staff. Little card, maybe some chocolates, and a really nice plant here.
I have the best gift of all, which is Anacortes fiber.
Oh,
Already.
Nice! Wow, that's a nice. We'll take that plug any day. Thank you very much, Ms. Moulton.
Thank you. So we talk about infrastructure all the time at the city, and Marcia is our infrastructure in so many ways. The work she does touches every single department directly. All of our citizens, our public safety, anything that you can think of that happens at the city and happens well, Marcia is a part of that. If the city were an organism, Marcia would be the brain. So I will personally miss her very much. I'll miss seeing you across the dais, and everything that you've given to the city, to me personally, to our community over the years. Thank you so much for your service.
Again, thank you so much to your service to Anacortes. Appreciate it. Okay, and with that, I will adjourn the meeting and applause for Marcia.